Tonight's first poet is Joyce Rankin, a talented writer in all genres. Back in December, Joyce told a story at the library's Gaudy Night event of Christmas-themed ghost stories, and I'm still thinking about it. Yeah, true story. So originally from Judique, Joyce has been in Sydney since 2008, and she's interested in telling the stories of working-class women, especially rural women, and counts herself lucky to have gotten to know so many wonderful ones. So let's welcome Joyce.
This is called We Were All Refugees. Someone was telling me today that this person had lived in the United States for quite a few years and was saying that of all the groups along the sort of eastern shores of North America, that the Mi'kmaq were the ones, even with a long contact, that the Mi'kmaq were the ones who had best preserved their culture and their language and their identity. And I was happy to hear that, and sort of wondered that that's a really interesting thing, and that was sort of the thing that would be interesting to investigate a bit. But this is called We Are All Refugees. The circle drawn with Mi'kmaq symbols, from the edge I watch the round dance, hear the drums, the talk of old wrongs that linger on, the new beginning that is now. The elder gazes out at a circle of white faces. You were all refugees, she said, and we took you in. And yes, my own people came here in that time, disdained and dispossessed. Some came limping and weeping to these shores, some following families and lovers, some for adventure or thoughts of gain. In the country of our ancestors, we lived as you did, linked and sharing, at once possessing and being possessed, by braes and burns and high peaks from which we watched the sky. Where you had the trees, we had the bracken, the heather, and lived among each other until the clans were broken, not by the great battle, but by a great betrayal. Until the machines of government and politics ground us down, but not grinding us into the earth, they dug us out of it, carried us away in coffin ships, and we were spit out onto an unknown shore across the waters. Ships disgorging their cargo like combines spewing out husk grain. And there you were, linked and sharing, possessing and being possessed by woods and stream and high peaks from which you watched a different part of the same sky. And you helped us then, took us in, showed us food to be gathered from the woods and waters. There was enough for all, and friendship between us. We built barns and cut the trees, brought cattle and farmed the land, fished and kept our language. Oh, but the land. It was the land we wanted. It was paper deeds that defeated us at home. And the deeds of spoiled and greedy children of the old chiefs, the deeds to land we did not own in court of law, and that lesson we learned and remembered. You cannot win against the court of law, and old covenants and sworn obligations are swept away along with honor by rivers of white paper that flow through courts of law. In a new place, the old story, by language, race, religion set apart, dismissed, diminished, we, the Gaels, less white than the English, but whiter than Mi'kmaq, chose to press ourselves against the sleeves and stand beside those who held the weapons and the power. That fierce connection to the old land, the desolation of departure, made us grasp this soil more firmly and brought sorrows upon you. The lawyers came, and the government men, to measure and label the land. We wanted the deeds, so we fenced it in and signed our names, stoked the machines of government and politics, and watched them grind you down. And why did none of us speak? The ones who sang of courage were silent. The ones who sang of honor closed their eyes, murmured that they meant you no harm. And in the end, we had the land. Through your long years of hardship, we did not ever ask because we did not want to know. But now there are those who do not wait to be asked. They tell us what we need to know. And now the wheel is turning, for the trees are made into paper to be pointed and directed like arrows, reams and reams of paper gather to a river, and now it flows again through courts of law. This is called When the Sea Gives Up Her Dead. Was I not closer to the mic before? Maybe I... Okay. When the end time comes, they say, the sea will give up her dead. But I will beg to argue, for I say they are not her dead, they are mine. They are ours, those lost ones. The sea has taken them from us, but they do not belong to the sea. And the sea is not a woman. The sea is a formless, shaggy thing that on wild days rumbles and roars and swipes at the shore, and on soft days murmurs and purrs to trick us into friendship. When the sea gives up her dead, will they appear? My brothers. Will my brothers rise from the waves with the foam dripping from their beards and seaweed in their hair? Will my husband float back to my bed? Will his skin be clothed and clammy, his toes white and bloodless, nibbled by fish and his glingans shriveled to a nub? I watch the sea now, an enemy who has stolen everything from me, and I wait my chance. I wait. In the end times, they say, the sea will release them. Perhaps then we'll give up harassing, stop flinging spit and spray into our faces, stop whispering their names into the night to torment me. Will the sea give up the dead willingly, or must we wrest them from her grasp? If we must, we'll wade into the freezing water, waves swirling around our ankles, the bottom stirred up muddy and brown, broken fragments of seaweed and twigs floating in the eddy. We shall grasp their frail wrists and haul them to us with the strength of our shoulders, the dripping weight of waterlogged wool and boots, and the suction of the waves set against our grim determination. Or will they march out of the bay then, the ranks of them like soldiers in their sea boots and oilskins? My dear Johnny, my brothers torpedoed and lost in the North Atlantic drift, Uncle Angus with his pipe, and the fishermen of the village who went too far and stayed too long. Some who loved the sea and those who went reluctantly. The boys who shipped out on the big schooners looking for adventure, and the girls who traveled by ship to visit relatives or to find work or a new life. All the ones who never made it home. And then behind them, in ranks, will come the ones from the old stories my mother told, a grandfather I never knew, a great-grandfather, village neighbors, and back to those faded names that only a few remember, but in whom, as they come closer, I can see a shape of chin, the coloring or way of moving that have come down to their descendants, who we know and who surround us every day. And back to the unknown ones who sailed toward this small harbor and did not reach land. Their faces and names lost to us in their antique clothes, the long skirts and shawls that dragged them down into the depths. But here they'll come now, and we will become acquainted. The salt smell will be on them, the reek of rotted seaweed, a whiff of black silt from the sea bottom. When the sea gives up our dead, the place here will be crowded with reunions and recognition. Women will rise from the earth to visit their returning husbands and sweethearts. Mothers will embrace their lost sons and daughters. And children will meet fathers they did not have time to know. We will wrap them in our arms, those poor, cold bodies with their white, water-slick skin and knotted hair, their clothes crusted with barnacles. When the sea gives back our dead, they will come with their passions and sorrows. They will be real and here, and they will look into our eyes, and we will be whole again.
Our second poet tonight is Jennifer MacDonald. Jennifer was born in and still resides in Sydney. She began writing poetry during the first lockdown and has continued on since then. Writing has been a crucial outlet to express her response to the pandemic, and she's excited to share one of her poems with all of us.
This is titled Parenthood. I won't be rich or famous or an important person be. I won't be a special someone that all will know to see. I won't rule over anyone or wear any sort of crown. My achievements unhistoric, not of great renown. I'll never climb tall mountains or sail across a sea. A life filled with adventure is not what's meant for me. I won't travel the four corners or journey over land or tell stories from far places. That's not what life has planned. Yet I began a magic journey that consumed my heart and soul, lives to love beyond my own, little parts of a greater whole. In their eyes I'd seen the world in ways I had missed before. The sameness all looked new again. First time round I'd missed the more. In their words I heard thoughts and dreams, and I was lifted far away, to a land where hope is endless and each one a perfect day. In their faces I saw magic as they watched the world unfold, the rush of new adventures discovering the untold. In their voices I heard laughter, a sweeter music still unheard. I was taken to a happy place, in joy without a word. In their hearts I felt the future moving me to parts unknown, a journey not yet taken, on which my wings had not yet flown. My life is full of wonder, but it's quiet, calm, and still, not filled with peaks and valleys, but flat earth and little hills. Though my life is ordinary, and my story has not thrilled, I've given and received and loved, and I am well fulfilled.
Our next poet is Danny McNeil. Danny is a singer-songwriter from Cape Breton, and as a confessional folk artist, his songs are influenced by the continuous struggle for contentment and true peace of mind. His poetry lends itself easily to the lyrical world, and I've heard him perform, but maybe it'll find its truest form when spoken tonight.
That was by far the nicest introduction I've ever seen. You guys got that on camera, right? I'm going to send that to my parents and my 6th grade teacher that I showed my first poetry to. We did it. This is a new poem I just wrote, so I'm hoping to get through it without any hiccups. But it's called Vertical Arrows. I'm an honest mess, a train wreck catch. I'm half decent at best. But that's okay because I have friends. I think they listen when I have nothing to say because I've always been spoiled that way. But that doesn't mean that I don't miss them, even though it's been almost 3 years since I stayed up past 3, slurring speech in the kitchen, doing everything and anything I could to avoid looking at myself. And I'd bleed for the hell of it and put it back on the shelf, because back there I could remember the vertical arrows. Back there I could remember swimming fully dressed in Grand Narrows. Back there I could only suppress, before I knew that getting things off your chest feels pretty good. Before I knew, but nevertheless in the ocean I would bathe, because submerged in salt water nobody can stare and nobody can engage. And that is where I began to dream of a lathe. I dreamt of dark woods next to chisels and blades. I dreamt of shaping a whole balustrade in a dimly lit place. I didn't dream of callus or some great escape. I didn't dream of things about me that I wish I could change. So I pointed the bow to the sky, let the arrows fly. Chose not to write home to the place that owned me sky to bone, breathing heavier than a toddler with a telephone. And now I just wish I could relive it. I wish I could go back and remember every single digit. And I'm not entirely sure how, but luckily this is home now. Thanks.
Okay, our fourth poet tonight is Karen Blair. Karen has read her poems at Governor's Book Pubs, Dr. Luke's Poetry Nights, and several Poetry Month celebrations here at the library. I'm really excited for all of those things to come back. Those sound like fun. After helping to raise 3 amazing daughters, Karen now shares her home with a spouse, 2 dogs, and a strangely obsessive cat. Adult educator by day, Karen is drawn to the outdoors in her downtime and may be found on local hiking trails, beaches, or snorkeling off the Cape Breton shore. So, welcome.
I think I'll read 2 poems, one short one, one a little bit longer one. As was mentioned in the intro, I'm an adult educator by day, so I work with people who who don't have high school diplomas, and they're living pretty hard lives. I heard someone express it as they're always on the hard button. If you're a gamer, they're always playing on the hard button. That's kind of their life, and so it's interesting and has repercussions for those of us who work in this field. This poem is called The Toll, Confessions of a Charity Professional. You're my second mom, she said, but I'm not. I could be. Doesn't matter now. We're joined. I heard your story, so it's too late. I confess, you are mine, over and over. My kith, my kin. Your hope, surely grounded in faith, not reason, for better, for getting out, for your kids, a reason after all. We know many fail, most. Another story. Purse lips look down and away, clouds creep behind our eyes, barrel bombs in our core. 1 step forward, 3 to the side, 5 back, the dance. Another kid, new man, kicked out, using again, cupboard bare, afraid. The chorus, it might work, give hope or not. Our kith, our kin. Alone, heart speeds, lungs constrict, we wake and see. Moon snail on rippled beach, low tide. From nowhere, everywhere, latching on, boring a predatory hole, sucking guts, heart, being, growing. Our kith, our kin, give hope or not. No easy rides at this slow ebb, hoping for one to leap away beyond the pounding waves in a springtide full moon. The snail feeds, empty shells scattered behind. My next poem, I guess you could say it was birthed in the north. I used to live in Kamanittuaq, Baker Lake, Nunavut, for quite a while. And there we knew a young man called Moses. And the Inuit people have if they have an English name, they often have an Inuktitut name also. And the Inuktitut name comes from someone who has passed. And you should know that the Inuit believe in reincarnation. This poem is called Moses, Kumaureak. Part 1, The Land. Decades ago, big storm coming. Elders and science shared common voice, collective wisdom. Don't go. Your children's hammocks to keep small feet warm hang by the cracked door frame. Mittens on the floor, 3 pair, Pampers in the trash, glanced on your way out. Jagged bolts of hard words float in the air. The cold slaps your face, muscles pull as you start the machine through bulky mitts. Rifle slung across chest, patina of purpose as the pressure drops. The town is silent, waiting, preparing. Heads clear out there when homes recede. The machine thrums with the rhythm of the drifts, pounding over hard ridges, taking a beating, purging peace unfolding. Time is lost with fading light. A pause to get bearings. Gray-tinged caribou scrapes on the hill with wide, sharp hooves, through wind-packed snow to the moss beneath. Sustenance, life force, the rifle jams. There must be more. Moving on, windier. Whiteness skitters across the windshield. Ptarmigan watch in the lee side of rocks. Black eyes in a cloud of white. Enough for one day. Tomorrow may bring luck. Make a wide curve following the tracks, heading back. Part 2, Northern Lights. The searchers go out day after day, wave upon wave. Frostbite cracks their faces in minus 65 wind chill. Arctic high, January, Nunavut, our land. They stream in from Rankin, Arviat, Chesterfield, Whale Cove, Joehaven, Back River, Thelon, Kazan, Pedlamiut, Kivedlamiut, wave upon wave. They know this land, this story. Machines are borrowed, given, cracked, wrecked by the relentlessness. It goes on for weeks. He was young. He didn't know like they know. Days are short, nights stretch, hyperactive northern lights, sunspot storm. Dancing, flickering, not to be captured, animated. Filling the sky, spirits kicking a sealskin ball, while searchers rest. We see his gentle face in our dreams. Moses. Part 3, Windshield. It is a bright day when they see the glint. 6 weeks gone. The searchers dwindled, but all kept watch for any sign, hoping for something before spring, and nothing left from nature's scavengers in this hard land. A mere glint, and they drove closer. Not a rock, tip of a windshield. They dug and found him. Curled behind a wall, a windbreak, not yet igloo. How long had he wandered before he'd begun? Too spent to complete. Hypothermia came. The final hot, desperate rush of blood to his core tore off his parka, frozen in shirt sleeves. He had tried. His family needed to know. Part 4. Panic, Irnik, my daughter, my son. The old hall is tiny, warm with bodies. Outside, fall snow on the roads. Winter comes soon. Saturday flea market draws a crowd. Children's boots, parkas strewn on tables and floor to clothe so many young. And household wares, spoons, ice chisels, bannock. Looking for tiny sorrels for my oldest one, size 3, stooped over a promising green pair with worn soles. Shod many feet. Hard to find. Good liners, they'll do. The murmur begins around the hall's edges, where the elders sit. Swells to a soft thrumming. I stand, elders bear down on me. Smiling, tears flow down cheeks' canyons. Kumarak, Kumarak, Kumar, come, his Inuktitut name. My daughter in my moutie, on my back, her month-old head peeks out, eyes wide. Her spirit born when lights danced in the sky. His name. Her name now. Soft skin accepts a brush of cheek, a kunik, from beautiful faces, carved by wind, by tears, by much. A beating joy in the hall. Kumarak is among us. My love, hearts join. There is joy in lakes of tears. Thank you.
Our next poet is Erin Ashley Phillips. Erin is a singer-songwriter, librarian, bike commuter, mother, and gardener. She moved to Sydney in 2009 and has been putting down roots here, literally and metaphorically, ever since. Welcome, Erin.
So I'm going to start with what I'm calling prelude to a poetry reading. Or maybe preface to a poetry reading. I'm not really a poet. I like the idea of poetry, the idea of the poet, the confessional artist, the minstrel, and the bard. But I'm not a poet. I don't even read poetry. I joined a poetry club. We read old poems, new poems, poems by women, men, black, white, and indigenous. I struggled to find poems to share, poems I could relate to, poems I could understand. I quit the poetry club. I'm not really a poet. Sometimes I'm a songwriter, and my songs do begin as bits of verse. Usually they find enough rhythm or rhyme to become songs. Sometimes they remain fragments of verse. So tonight, all I have to offer you are fragments of verse that never quite became songs. So this one is called Portrait of a Mother as a Young Star. I see myself at 23. I was hiding a secret vanity. I wanted to be a singer, full of beauty and artistry. The perfect hippie flower child, peace, love, and acoustic guitars. I never became a star, but I shine much brighter now. I was called to singing, and songwriting broke my shell. The shy kid found one thing she loved that she could do well. But she was cautious and took the easy road, stayed in school, played by the rules, and went out looking for a job. The guitar got packed when she left the city and came along on the journey east. And working for a steady paycheck keeps that guitar mostly in its case. I could have been someone if I took a chance when I was 23, if I risked living in self-imposed poverty. But if I did, where would I be? It's not that I gave up my dream. I am the singer, and sometimes I hear the call. But dreams change as egos recede, and space is given to serving those around me. I never became a star, but I shine much brighter now. I have one more. This one probably is the roughest of them. I'm definitely in fragments, but here we go. Time for a reset, a reboot. Back to life, back to friends, travel, music, adventure. Let's do this right. This is the time to make some changes. Change for good, change for the earth. Spring is coming, and it will be warmer than ever. I know why you're frustrated. They're tearing down the trees you love. But trees can be planted, and they can grow almost anywhere. Well, let's petition the city for bike lanes, for trails lined by trees. We'll tear up the old tracks. There ain't no trains coming back. Stop dreaming of some old technology to save our modern economy. Even tourism isn't guaranteed. COVID taught us that. So let's grow some food, grow some down-home music and art. Restore wetlands with willows and cattails. Pick up the trash, plant a tree. Do it for you, do it for me. Now is our chance, the big reset. Let's get together, put down the phone, and put on your dreams.
Our sixth poet this evening is Stephen Fortune, who is a graduate of Acadia University, where he studied English literature and history. He has released 6 poetry collections to date and edited several others. His work has been featured on CBC and other programs. And I think it's interesting that Stephen aspires to write for the stage and has recently completed his first one-act play. So maybe we'll see his work in another venue soon. But welcome.
All right. So I have 2 pieces. The first one was inspired by some time I spent at the farmer's market, which is not too far from here, of course. Basically just taking in some of the various images and atmospheres that that kind of swirl around at the farmer's market, and that is what it is called, the farmer's market. Colloquial murmurs and organic booths, the grains of a Sunday thesis, fiddles, guitars, sonic entrails of a Sydney adamant to advertise lack of an opera or sharks. Our soundtrack earns keep from its air tenancy, rubbing shoulders of kitchen thresholds, where strings and flesh birth roots. The Cape Breton kitchen party oscillates with the vapid tact of Hebrides druids, drunken sailors and the bies that built their boats, serenading Fingal with off-key cacophonies of lurid sea shanties. Metal clanks circulate the homemade cauldron man's irony busk, resuscitating memoirs of a railroad's economic intestines. Social blood fueling arterial chugs. Canada's poor man's Klondike, apportioning war steel for the odds makers of mortal identity. Here lives a geographic casualty of war. Cauldron man's staccato clinks sounded like a summon to a wedding kiss at first. But here are Sydney's finest, keeping Sydney fine with its homegrown rotary of bill and coin transactions. British industries and provincial governments who take the meaning of mainland to heart and the island to purse need not acquire hand-painted signs bidding welcome to one's home. Tongues of treasuries are incapable of savoring these soups or indulging in the sentiment of localized greeting cards. And tourist-minded ministers are blind to the photos of ethereal Cape Breton off the Cabot Trail's path. A restless child cries as a toy train tantrum is hushed underneath the alloyed throne of ancestry. And this is a bit more of an introspective piece. It's a shorter piece. It's called Private Service Announcement. Lost in my home without the map I slumber with. Routines of morning music, coffee, and indulgent lights of ambience linger in their ghosted forms of floating automatic habits. Yet they must be seen through to remind myself your presence simply nestles somewhere else, sheltering from some insistent form of planted origin. Crystallized bullets of the cruelest April rain seal me to the inside of our handicapped coexistence. In my languid disengagement, I can read nothing but the clock, making wishes at our designated times and cajoling my unguarded insecurities into the bargain of an artist, where I court your proxy with a countdown and a deadline, for your borders are what shield me from lethargy's overruling wilderness. Thank you.
So our final featured poet for this evening is Kara Jones. Kara is from Antigonish and began writing poetry at a young age. She finds that poetry offers her a way to explore the complex layer of her internal and external world, and I think that's true for a lot of us. Welcome, Kara.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun. I miss this so much. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to start. I'm sure you're all in the same place of going, what am I going to pick? This is a tribute to me after one of the worst weeks I have had in years. And if you knew my life, you would know that's saying something. So this is so that I don't forget that we're all awesome and strong. I wrote this poem. I write poetry on people's bodies, and I do take photos of them, and my series is called People Paper. I've been doing it for 20 years. And I was really honored to be asked by the artist Tina Martell, who I'd written on before, just before the pandemic, to write on her again after she had a double mastectomy. She wanted me to write on her chest. And I had the perfect poem that I wanted to write on her. I had just written it, and I'm going to write it. I'm a poet. I'm so smart. And I was really excited because she's an art professor, so I knew that she would know where I was going with this. So I invite you after, if you ever want to go to my Facebook page, you can see the image. But we reenacted Manny's Olympia. Manny's Olympia is something that we're often taught in art school when we want to critique and understand the difference between naked versus nudity. And it was a huge scandal when Manet did this, because nobody had ever painted a woman so stark, looking directly into the eye of the viewer, clamping her hand down on her crotch and saying, I'm over it. So this is called Olympia's Over It. After 30 minutes of questions to summarize 41 years of blood, sweat, and fears, the psychiatrist looked up from her notepad. I held my breath for the verdict. Slowly, sitting back in her chair, she delivered it with certainty, revealing to me that I had achieved too much to have ADHD. I released my breath. It was hot with frustration, pure exacerbation, tears streaming down my cheeks, releasing years of desperation, desperate to be believed I was over it. I should have been over it a long time ago. But I was trained to be a good girl, to not question the status quo. Don't ruffle the feathers of the collective ego. I needed them to keep this avatar alive. Now, I'm a woman on a journey of unlearning self-doubt and projected fear, and I have noticed that I give less F's with each passing year. So in this particular moment, I am unapologetically pissed as I sit in front of this doctor thinking of the growing list of moments I was not believed, unnecessary hurdles between me and all I have achieved. Lost keys, appointments missed, daily anxiety, that it would all come crashing down around me because I knew I was forgetting something, but I just couldn't remember what it was. Still, I knew it would find me. I just didn't know where or when or what excuse I would have to come up with, because I had to ensure that nobody knew that I had 10 TVs on in my head and every show was the best show I had ever seen. So I tried to watch every single one of them and missing the entire plot of every single episode. Yes, I knew I had ADHD. Just like my mother knew when I was a child that I had epilepsy. Even though Mom was told I was a fake and that she was just an overprotective mother who shouldn't question authority to check her place in the ranks of superiority. Thank God she learned to unlearn, or I would probably be dead, instead of standing here feeling grateful for the privilege to be angry and over it. I want to make something clear. I have had incredible doctors help me to succeed. Doctors who listened and believed that I knew my body, myself, my pain. It's their example that instills hope when faced with more of the same ignorance. So that's that one. The other two are shorter. So after the kind of awful week, I found myself yesterday sitting on the chapter's floor reading poetry in Halifax. And of the whole wall of books of poetry, I still went straight for Leonard Cohen. So, straight for him. I was like, oh look, there's all these collections. And I have always just really been drawn to Leonard Cohen. And I think it's because of the way that he captures a world with such a simple way of writing. He uses really simple ways to express such complex things. Being human is hard. I just need to find it. Excuse me, I had it here. Here it is. So this was written by 23-year-old Kara. I love that you said that. I was like, I know what you mean. She was in Korea and she was all like, I need to conquer the world. But first I'm going to read some Leonard Cohen. So this is called Leonard Cohen. I fell asleep with you last night. My fingers leafed through your hair. Words fell out like winter flakes invisibly drifting to the floor. Those are the best kinds of words. You spoke to me of gifts like that and the fingerprints you were missing. That girl had a mission similar to air. It naturally existed with clear intent. Her thoughts of ransom you misunderstood. I wondered if you possessed fangs in youth, or did flowers lace your intention. There's comfort in the truth you speak. I have met many copies of you in my life. Your version is much more compelling. Sleep enters the room unannounced and leering. Change accompanies it with plans up its sleeves. You by my side with your masks put away, crawl under my blankets to hide for a while, ignoring them both till dawn. And then my last one. Okay, so I absolutely love that the world may seem as if it's ridiculous right now, but at the same time, we're seeing change. And that's a great thing. So this is a tribute to my bisexual self that I knew was bisexual since I was a really little kid. So it's called Sears Catalog. I remember my first crush on a woman. She occupied page 27 in the Sears catalog. A brunette. A black matching bra and underwear set hugged her curves. Her hair softly fell down her cheek. Or down her neck, excuse me. I remember my first crush on a man. He stared back at me from page 38 of the Sears catalog. He wore white briefs with legs like trees and bulging junk in his trunk. I was 8 years old. I kept page 38 open on my desk to throw off the onlookers. I tore out page 27 and I hid it between my mattress. I remember my first crush. So I plan to write that one on my husband this summer. So thank you. So my son is 17, and he unfortunately has been struggling really hard, like many of us, but he has this debilitating headache condition, so he's kind of been out of commission for like 3 years. And, you know, he is so smart, you know, and just so in tune. And when he was younger, I think he was 11, I asked him the question, this is called child support advice from your child. Okay? I asked him the question on the side of the road. I said, listen, honey, I don't want you to ever think that I didn't try hard enough. And I was really unsure if I should go after his birth dad for child support, because it's very daunting. He's in Australia. And he answered the most incredible way, and so I captured it in this poem. Child support advice from a child. I am not a mistake, he asserted. 11 years with the wisdom of a sage. But people make mistakes, he explained. I adored watching him come of age. And he made a huge mistake, he declared. I felt pride in his mature outrage. Leaving you with all the work, he exclaimed. I'm grateful he never witnessed my rage. People need to pay for their mistakes, he said. I'm sad he saw me struggle for a wage. It's only fair he pays for his, he demands. His strength is turning a new page. Because you and I deserve it, he confirmed. His love will forever take center stage. I love you, he affirmed. I love you too. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mary Jean Doyle, and I'm a local artist and writer. I've created a ton of really, really, really cool stuff, but for poetry, I mostly stick to confessional poetry as I try to sort out my mental health issues. So these are 2 poems that I wrote that I have as part of a collection that I'm hoping to, when it's finished, hopefully it sees the light of day, because that'd be pretty cool. The first one is called Polydactyl Dreams. Polydactylism is when you have extra fingers or toes. Interesting fact. My polydactyl dreams have manifested into a tail. The spine contorts. I writhe back and forth. My new coronet is a mystery to me, elongated coccyx, a vestigial rib. I excrete rings the way a child loses teeth. I have found dimes in my waist, tangible proof there is a God with 6 fingers on each hand and lungs for wings. And the next one is called Thumbtacks. Pin my ribs apart, excise my heart, and fill me with dirt before you sew me back up. I will not identify you. The sterility of my throat does not allow me to speak. I have swallowed bleach. Now my organs are as dry and white as bones, and the serving platter of my lungs holds a variety of disinfected keys. Vivisection is a bore when the patient has already been gutted. My previous appointment did not leave very much behind. In my stomach, you will find my telephone and the 12 missed calls I've had since I left home. Do not bother extricating it. I don't want to be found. My black market body is full of canopic jar trinkets. Take what you need and leave your coins at my feet. I have doubled the fee for the next in line. It's a closing out sale and everything must go. Thank you.